Hello everyone and welcome back to Kobean History. Today's video is a little bit different. It's not the type of video that I usually post on this channel, at least not anymore. So just before we get into the video, I wanted to give a little explanation. So last year I had the idea of creating a second channel, which would focus on evolutionary history and biology. If you're a long-time subscriber, you might remember I used to make videos on those topics on this channel. But a few years ago I decided to stop covering those topics as it didn't match that well with the proper history content that I want to be focusing on this channel. But I'm still interested in evolutionary history and biology as well, so that's why I wanted to create that second channel. And the video you're about to watch you can consider as a sort of proof of concept of the style of videos I'd be making on that channel. Now I didn't get around to creating that channel last year, and I was hoping to do it this year, but it looks like I won't really have time to start this project, so I had this video that I made last year still laying around, and because I've put creating that second channel on the back burner for now, I might as well share this video with you on this channel. And I'd love to know what you guys think of the idea of me creating that second channel, as well as what you think of the style of this video. So please let me know in the comments below what you think. Long ago, a species of bird landed on this atoll. Finding a haven without predators, they developed flightlessness. But this meant that when rising sea levels submerged the islands, there was no means of escape for these birds and they went extinct. After thousands of years underwater, the islands resurfaced, but oddly enough, the fossils of the seabirds before the flood are nearly identical to the flightless birds that still wander the atoll to this day. So how did these birds manage to de-extinct themselves? We'll find out in this evolutionary tale. Our story starts 136,000 years ago with a group of white-throated rails which lived on Madagascar. These birds have been referred to as persistent colonizers and are known to build up large numbers on Madagascar, with the following overcrowding and food shortage triggering these birds to depart the islands in large numbers, with flocks going in all directions. This is an event that still occurs every 50 to 100 years, and if the birds are lucky, some will find a better place to live. This is what happened to a flock of birds who came across Aldabra Atoll. Not only did they find a safe place without any major predators, but with Aldabra being the second largest coral atoll in the world, they also had ample room and a good supply of food to maintain a decent population on the island. Over time, with no need to leave the island and no predators to escape from, flight became unnecessary and these birds became flightless. This is a story which applies to many bird species who find themselves on islands, as flight is very energy intensive, giving a natural bias to flightlessness when the environment allows for it. Sadly, the modern-day Aldabra white-throated rail is the only type of flightless bird that remains on the islands of the Indian Ocean, the others being wiped out by predators introduced when humans set foot on these islands, the dodo being the most famous example. But a lot of other islands in this region had flightless birds of their own. It's a bit ironic that the only survivor is a bird that went extinct in a flood 136,000 years ago, but perhaps not surprising as it managed to resurrect itself from extinction before. Okay, alright, I'll stop with the clickbait terms now. See, I haven't been entirely honest with the types of words I've been using. This subspecies did not actually come back from the dead or de-extinct itself. That's just not something that happens. But these terms were used a lot as clickbait titles in a lot of the articles which covered this study back when it first came out. So I have to be clear here, this is not what actually happened. They didn't de-extinct themselves or resurrect themselves. Not in the literal sense at least. To find out what really happened, we go back to our group of birds living their happy lives on Aldabra 136,000 years ago. When the sea levels started to rise and eventually submerged the atoll, they went extinct. And I'm sorry if I misled you earlier, but they're not coming back. Judging by the distribution of marine fossils, the area remained underwater for around 18,000 years, resubmerging around 118,000 years ago. At this point, the original species of white-throated rail were still doing their thing on Madagascar, and once again a group found their way to Aldabra Atoll. These are the ancestors of the modern-day white-throated Aldabra rail. Faced with the same environment as their extinct cousins, this group too developed flightlessness. Then something interesting happened. Be it the cause of a weird coincidence or just the most straightforward adaptation of natural selection, these birds developed nearly identically to the group that came before them, which researchers discovered when comparing the bones of pre-flood specimens to those of the flightless rails that exist on Aldabra today. And when looking at a third specimen that lived on Aldabra in the immediate post-flood period, around 100,000 years ago, suggests that the bird was already in the process of losing their flight. In other words, virtually the same subspecies independently evolved on Aldabra 2 separate times. To explain it another way, here we have the original species from Madagascar. This is the first group that arrived and went extinct. And here is the modern day group. As you can see, they come from the same ancestor, but the first group is not the direct ancestor to the modern group. This is why we can't call it de-extinction or resurrection or coming back from the dead, as the modern day subspecies is an entirely different subspecies to the ones that came before the flood, even though by the looks of it they look pretty much the same. This is what's called iterative evolution, which can be defined as the repeated evolution of a specific trait or body plan from the same ancestral lineage at different points in time. So that was the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I realize some of the camera movement isn't as good as it could be. But yeah, when I made this video, I was still getting the hang of how Adobe After Effects worked, so that's why it's not as smooth in some parts as it could be. Now I probably will make this channel at some point in the future, I just don't know when yet. But until that happens, I hope you've enjoyed this proof of concept, and I'd like to thank my patrons for their support, especially my $25 patron, G. David.